This is the standard vibrator assembly. It is an integral part in the overall production of concrete masonry products. The following procedure is the steps Besser Company uses in the assembly procedure. It is important to know all of the components of the vibrator and the tools required. The basic tools needed in the assembly process shown here should be uniformly laid out for easy access. Shown here are the components that go into the assembly of the vibrator.
And the first step assembling these vibrators, we take a piece of bar stock that's already been issued to us, and at Besser Company, we make sure the shaft is straight and concentric. And by doing this, we put it on a balancer and we indicate it in. And if the shaft is over 2 thousandths out of concentric, we don't use it. We either have it straightened or we get a new shaft. Then we take the shaft, put it in our working vise, and we burr it, taking all the burrs out because this keyway is important. Having done that, we make sure these pinholes are clear of any obstructions. We just use a drill bit. Stick in the hole. Again, keeping the shaft clean and debris free. Okay, the next step in assembly is putting the closures on. And we already explained that the seals are put in backwards on the closures. And that's so when new lubricant is pumped inside the bearings, the contaminated stuff will come out. And before we put the closures on, I like to use a little lubricant on there, just so it doesn't stick to the shaft. And we stick these on like this. And we'll put the other closure on, lubricate it a little. Now when you place these on, be careful because there's a little spring inside these closures that you want to stay put. You don't want to lose them. It holds the seal around the shaft itself. Okay, I can point to it right here, bring it over here. There's a spring in there, a little spring. If you can see, get a close-up shot. That spring should stay put when you put it on the shaft itself. After the closures go on, then we put the sparing washer on and the nut on for the adapter. That goes on this end right here. We take the other nut and sparing washer. I'll usually set it aside right back here where I won't forget it because it can't go on now until the adapter goes on. Next, we're going to put the bearings on, but I'll show you how we push the bearings into the bearing housings at Besser Company, and this is a recommended way to do it. First, we take the bearing housing. Now, in the next step in assembling the vibrators, we're going to push the bearings into the bearing housings. And we always lubricate our bearing housing so the bearing slides easily into place. And we're going to use a press. We're not going to hammer the bearings in. We're going to use a press like the factory recommends. And place the bearing gently and squarely on top like that. Take our push plate, set it on top. They go in very easy. After we push them flush, we have a depth gauge, which is right here, which will reseat that bearing 1/4 inch in the housing. We take the other one, go through the same steps again. Lubricate the housing. Place the bearing squarely on the bearing housing. Push plate on. Having done that, reseat it 1/4 inch. If you'll notice, this is recessed 1/4 inch in. This side here is approximately 5/8 of an inch in. This is where the nuts, it leaves room for your nut on your adapter. That's the reason we do this. Having done that, we'll place the bearings on the shaft. The next step in assembly of these vibrators is we have already placed the bearings in the bearing housings. Now we'll place, at this time, the bearings on the shaft. Remember I told you that the deep side always goes towards the nut. Now we'll leave this one off momentarily, and we're going to put the adapters on now. These lock the bearing itself onto the shaft. We keep them debris free, keep everything clean. I know it's hard in the industry because you're working in a dirty, noisy environment, but we'll slip the adapter on now at this time. That side. And likewise on the other end. Now, as I put these adapters on, as you can see, there's a hole in the shaft. These pins will go in there, right inside that hole right there, and it will keep that adapter from spinning on the shaft. That's why a lot of times when you don't use the pins, your bearings want to wander, and this adapter will come loose. Right now in the process, we'll put the other closure on, lubricate it a little. That's just to make it slide better on the shaft. There. Next, we'll put the shiv adapter on. And to do that is the adapter right here. Thoroughly clean it. And we'll put our pin in. I always touch the keys up before I put them in the keyway, because eventually this key has to come out to repair it. Setting the key in using a brass hammer, we snugly place the key in the keyway. Take the adapter, which has been cleaned, and slip it over the key. Now, when we're all done, we want the shaft to be fairly flush with the end of the shaft itself. To do this, there's a little secret. Usually if you take 5/8 inch stock and move this adapter 5/8 of an inch from the end to the adapter and tighten down this set screw right here, like that. When I place this on and tighten everything down, that shiv should be fairly square with the end of the shaft. We'll go get the shiv. Before placing on, I usually look on the inside of it, make sure there's no burrs around the holes here so it seats flush. Check it for burrs. I got my butterfly impact gun. Now we'll place the shiv onto the adapter. Put all 3 screws into the adapter. We go around and evenly tighten each nut until they're all tight. Having done that, now we will put what we call Loctite RC635 Loctite. It's a glue, it's a metal glue, and we will place a liberal amount of it so it goes on the inside of the adapter. Now when you use Loctite, the least you use, the stronger your bond is, so you don't need much. You smear it around, get it up underneath the adapter. When that's done, you take the pin and place it inside the hole, like so. Now we're just about ready to close it up. Now you can take your bearing, pick it up gently, and don't force it. Just gently draw it over the top of your adapter. Next goes your washer, your sparing washer, placed on there. Next goes your nut. And when you put your nuts on the adapter, don't strip it. They're really fine threaded and they're easy to strip. And if you strip them, you'll never tighten it on there right. So take your time when you put this nut on. There, it's on the right way. Just snug this up. It's only for temporary purposes right now. Close it up. Go down the other end of the shaft. Put some Loctite down here. Smear it around. And like I say, when you use this Loctite, if you do use it sparingly. Place the pin in the hole. Next step is place our bearing on the shaft over the adapter, making sure the deep side is towards the nut side. Putting the sparing washer on. And putting the nut on, and not cross-threading it. Having done that, we'll take a lift now and place it in a fixture where we're going to hold our bolt hole centers. Having completed the assembly to this point, we now will take the assembly out of the vise moving it over to placing it in the fixture to complete the other stage of assembly. The next step in the assembly of the vibrators is place the vibrators, now that are pre-assembled, into the fixture. We have to hold two dimensions when we're doing this. Bolt hole center to bolt hole center, which is 18 3/64 on this certain print. And another dimension you have to hold is from the front of the sheave to the front of the bearing housing, not to the closure, to the front of the bearing housing, which would be 5 5/16 from here to here. The next step in this assembly is we're going to bolt the vibrator down to the fixture. Tighten our bolts down in the fixture itself. This is a tailstock adjustment. This will let me hold my 5 5/16. I can adjust it with a turn of the hand, so I'll lock it down now. Having done that, when we tighten our nuts down, we don't want the sheave to turn. So in doing so, we have a sheave clamp. The next step in the process, before we tighten down, is to make sure we held our 5 and our 5/16. Five and 5/16. Now we're ready to tighten the bearings on the shaft. In doing so, we take a small sparing wrench and tighten the nut. Snug them up with the short one. Likewise this end. Now we get the larger one. And how tight do we tighten these? We come to the time now where we're going to tighten the nuts onto the adapters and tighten the bearings onto the shaft. We always go and tighten them down. And how tight do we tighten them? Well, we usually use a 2/1000 feeler gauge. We go to the 12 o'clock bearing. Between the bearing and the outer race, draw the feeler gauge through there. Keep on tightening here until this feeler gauge draws rather hard. So you got a real nice draw. Keep on tightening it, and you'll feel a nice heavy draw. When you have that draw, so it fits nicely through there, snugly, that is tight enough. So that's what we're going to do right now, is tighten this down right here. Take our wrench. Snug it up. That seems pretty tight right there. Now, once you start tightening this adapter onto the nut on the adapter, when we're finished, we have to have a tab that's right there in line with this notch right here. We have to bend one over. That keeps the nut from untightening later when you're using the vibrator. So once you start tightening, you never back this off because you've already conformed this adapter to the shaft. Just go to the next tab and bend it over. Slide this up a little more. That being snug, now we're going to tighten the other side. Make sure a tab, we have to go a tad farther to snap the tab in over the notch. That looks good there. Okay, now we're going to bend the tab over into the notch, like that. And down here, we'll bend this tab down into the notch, here. Having done that, now we can release it from the shaft sheave. Loosen the tailstock up. Now we're set to lubricate. We use a Royal Purple brand of grease. It's a synthetic, high temperature grease. And put our grease fittings up. Clamp that one in place. And likewise down here. Get the grease gun. Having done that, we will go to the next bearing and lubricate it. After greasing the bearings, which we just completed, then we'll take our clamps off. We'll flip the closures around so out in the field you can service it by greasing it. Closing them up, putting our end cap on. Now we'll put the bolts and nuts together. Now the way we like to do it here is we like to insert the bolts from the inside out. And there's a reason for it. If the bolt should vibrate loose, you don't want it catching in your belting. It could throw it, it could harm somebody, or it could break your belt. Having said that, we'll place the bolts that side. Likewise here. Take our locking nuts, start them on each bolt. Taking our impact butterfly, Okay, they're all bolted together. What we usually do here at Besser Company is take it, make sure you got everything nice and tight. Everything swings nice, bearings feel real good. Now, we're going to fire this up. We're going to run it. At Besser Company, we usually run it 15 to 20 minutes. We run each vibrator. It's to seat the bearings, make sure everything's running good, and you get a good product. We can fire this up right now. Stand back. After we have run it for 15 to 20 minutes and everything looks good and sounds good, we have one more final step. We stamp the part number per se, and the date it was manufactured goes on there. What you have just seen is the assembly of a vibrator, how we do at Besser Company. I'd just like to add a little more to it, that when you are assembling out in the field, and I know you are working in a dirty environment, to try to keep contaminants until you get these vibrators together, keep it clean. That's important. Keep them clean and lubricated, and they'll give you the service.